My Digital Hotel, find the right technology to boost your guest experience. Welcome back, mates. We are here as every Tuesday with my colleague Claudia Ferrero.
Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
Claudia.
Hi, Maurizio. How are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm very excited today because this is actually our first episode in English.
Yes, for sure. Yes, the first episode, and I hope we have more episode in English. So with more guests from abroad. Today is a great episode because we choose a really interesting topic.
Indeed, we will talk about education, higher education in this case, and also we will talk about training and new jobs in hospitality industry. So I'm very excited about this topic, also because I'm a former student of one of these higher education colleges, so
Yeah.
I'm very proud of having
Which college?
Glion.
Guillaume. So it's
Glion in Switzerland.
in Switzerland. Okay, fine. So every week we speak about technology and how important is technology in development of hotel and hospitality in Italy. But today we speak about education because we could have good technology, but if we don't have good people trained to use the technology, it's really difficult to boost the experience of our guests. So
Exactly.
that's really important to speak about this topic today. And for this reason, we have a great guest. And as every week also, our live manager, Antonio.
Hey guys, nice to be here with you again. And I'm
Hi,
really
Antonio.
excited. I'm really excited about the guest and the lesson we are going to see because there is no word to describe that. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So the survey is ready, Antonio.
Yes, the pool is ready, and
Okay.
today I would like to be a bit more romantic than usual. And with Claudia, we entitled the pool "The Pursuit of Happiness."
Oh, so really great. So you can find the link to the pool on the comments. So please check the comments on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and vote and share with your colleagues. And most important, subscribe our Telegram channel because the member of our Telegram channel have already do the survey because it's a privilege for the people on the Telegram channel to have access to our resources and also our survey as a prime time. Really, Antonio?
Yes, we're ready. I'm just launching right now.
Okay, fine. So,
okay, please share also comments and questions during our live because we really want to know your opinion, your doubts, and so because this series is made from bottom up, we will create create content thanks to your advice and comments that we had during the previous episodes. So please continue to do so. Support our community, and now I would like to introduce. Let me just tell a few words about our special guest, if you don't mind, Maurizio.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I'm just would like to say that he's a program director BBA in global hospitality management at the Roches campus in Switzerland, and is also in charge of the first ever master in hospitality management and digital transformation. He has over 30 years of a senior level hospitality industry experience including revenue optimization, marketing, operations, training, and leadership. By the way, in 2005, he was recognized among the 25 outstanding minds in hospitality, sales, and marketing. So it's a privilege and an honor to welcome Professor Scott Dahl with us.
Wow.
And the Oscar goes to.
I can't wait to hear what this guy has to say. First of all, Claudia, Maurizio, and Antonio, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm honored to be here. I know that you put together an amazing series that's really, and I've had some experience doing that. It's very difficult to do. I'm even more honored that I'm the first non-Italian speaker. That's a real honor for me. And I heard you encourage people to ask questions. And so I would also encourage you to always ask the question, would he please speak slower if that's necessary? Because I get a little bit excited about this topic. So I'm really happy to be here and happy to be with so many like-minded people. So thanks for having me.
Good.
Thank to you.
Would you like to add something to my presentation about yourself, or I would go on?
First of all, it was amazing. Thank you very much. I could use a PR person, and that was fantastic. No, I think that I think what I would add, I'm sure we'll talk about it some more, but you'll find, I think that I love the hospitality industry. I'm a hotelier. I was in the business for 35 years in total before becoming a professor, just in 2017 when I moved to Switzerland to teach. And so I really enjoy the business. I like the business. I've been through a number of cycles. You can tell, well, I was recognized in 2005, so that even tells you a while ago, but my gray hair is real. And so one of the things I really enjoy about that role, and especially now a little bit of a role in academia, is sometimes to reassure people that are in the business today that although it's maybe not the best time to own a hotel, it's about to be an amazing time to work in hotels. We've already sort of had the pain and the decline, and now we're just sort of waiting for the tailwinds that are going to really, I think, for most people in their careers, well, probably they're going to find it's the most exciting time since they've been at least in a leadership position, because the last 10 years have been, until COVID, very good. The business was good. It continued to grow nicely, very, very nice. And then we had this big disruption, which for a lot of people was the first time they really felt a downturn. Our business has cycles, but what some of us that have been through some of the cycles know is that the time afterwards can be pretty amazing. And especially for those that are innovative and creative and talented, because the recovery doesn't happen democratically. The recovery happens at the best run hotels first. And so in every single market, there can be a couple of year delay between when the first ones wake up and when the last ones really start to feel the full impact of what's getting better. So it's a time of optimism for me. And so I love to get together and share like this. So thanks.
Yeah, indeed. Now it's a right time for everybody to think about education and maybe take this off time, as I can say, to think about our future goals and maybe take advantage to attend the classes or new, like your master, and maybe try something new in this disruptive world. So
yeah, I mean, you make a perfect point, because what's going to be, the business is not going to be the same. We know that. And so it's critical really for each of us to be prepared for what that situation is going to be like, and to take advantage of the sort of calm right now, if you will. It's an unfortunate calm, but it's a calm to really take a personal inventory and look at, how can I make myself better so that I can be most prepared for when, that time comes. So I completely agree.
Sure.
Yes. So
Okay.
Claudia, you launched the pool this week, no?
Yes. Last week I launched the poll regarding education, and of course the question was if our followers were ready to think to attend a class or a master in order to digitalize their activity or to find new jobs. And the answers were either yes or no. And with 97%, of course, yes won. So I realized that most of us really are looking for new challenges and new things to do in order to innovate and improve their own background.
Yeah.
And we'll see what's with the next polls, what will be the result.
Yes, of course. So we are speaking today about higher education. No? So, and for this reason, you prepare some slides to share with our audience. And
Exactly.
we speak about the SOME education system.
Or SOMET education. I don't know, Mr. Dahl, how should we
in French or in
it?
English? How can we pronounce it?
I think that it depends on where you're sitting in the moment. Because, most people say SOMET, but it tends to be SOME here when someone doesn't know in French. So I think it's probably both of those are fine. I'm sure everything is fine.
Okay.
So SOME education is a group specialized in hospitality management and culinary arts. Committed to delivering an exceptional student experience and developing future talent for the experience industry. Glion at Le Roche, with campuses in Switzerland, Spain, China, and UK, gathers students from more than 100 countries, providing them an education built on the Swiss model made of academic rigor and skill-based learning. By the way, this slide is quite old right now because last week SOMET just acquired Invictus Education Group. So right now the campus are not 9 but 17, and students passes from 6,000 to 9,000. So it's a huge growth that SOMET education made in terms of education. What I would like to ask you to Mr. Dahl, you have been a lecturer in many other schools. So why did you choose Le Roche?
There are a number of reasons. And so one of the ones you've already alluded to a little, which is SOME education. SOME owns the school that you're an alumni of, Glion. SOME owns Le Roche. And those are the two main properties. There are some other campuses. SOME owns a culinary school, which is very far away from my part of the business, but very cool. And now Invictus. But what is interesting about that group is there was some vision about the future of hospitality. Hospitality higher education for a long time has trained everyone to be a luxury hotel general manager, and then upon graduation, adapt those skills for different roles. But the industry has changed a tremendous amount just in the last 20 years with the advent of digital marketing and online distribution, but it's been specialized for longer than that. And so those, like, education hadn't really kept up. We've basically just been this general hospitality track. And what SOME realized, in part from a very smart business decision to differentiate some from Glion, which is very well known in the luxury segment, they looked at Le Roche and said, well, let's understand what other opportunities are there in hospitality. And that led to digital transformation. It led to online distribution. This isn't think about how strange our industry is. How many industries does the customer use the product at the factory? It's a very strange thought if you really think about it very outside the box. And yet at the same time, you must come to the factory to use the product, but I've heard that as much as 85% of our transactions were online last year. So it's a very unusual business that has some components that first of all, most luxury goods would love to sell 85% of their products online. And they can put it in a box and send it to someone, and they don't have the same type of thing. So it's
sounds like Amazon.
Exactly, that's exactly right. I mean, imagine and our industry is, and it wasn't just the internet. For those of us that have been around a long time, the global distribution systems, the GDS systems, they carried more e-commerce than the entire internet did for a long time when the internet started to do commerce, because of all the airline traffic and everything that was going through them. So we kind of have been a digital transformation kind of industry for a long time, but we never really acknowledged it. And so that's why I came here, because I'm a revenue manager by trade. That has become revenue management and digital marketing, but initially those were both pretty much the same. And usually the revenue leader of a company oversees all of that. So that was the part of the business that I specialized in. That was the part of the business that treated me very well. I liked it. It was really, I would consider myself to be bright, but not a genius. Hardworking, right? But not really special in that regard. And yet it was really good to me. And so I had a relationship with the chief executive officer of Sommet as a result of him having been the dean at EHL when I first moved to Switzerland. And he contacted me and asked me if I'd be willing to put the digital transformation degree together. And it gave me a little bit of an opportunity to be a little bit evangelical about the industry. I just don't think that we've done a great job sharing all of the exciting careers that are the potential in the commercial part of the business, in those really incredible companies that help hotels make more money, whether that's property management systems and revenue management systems and business intelligence vendors and those kind of companies, or digital marketing agencies. Those are all amazing careers as well. And yet we don't really, in my opinion, market them very well to students. And so we lose students sometimes simply because they're tired of working on the weekends. And we don't explain to them that the business has so many different opportunities. So it gave me a chance to do that. It's a second life for me, really, in terms of, my first kind of running hotels was the first one. So Switzerland is quite beautiful if you can live here. So that was also a nice, certainly a nice draw. But the biggest thing was the opportunity to do something different in the industry, to do something special in terms of education, which is to really position the school away from the traditional part of hospitality, which is my roots. When people visit us, I still put 2 waters on the nightstand. My wife is a retired corporate director of sales. She still networks when she walks around her neighborhood. So we still have the hotel business in us very much, but it's been kind of fun to be able to give back a little bit in that way and create something special and new. So that was why.
Yeah, I have a great memories when I was in Glion. By that time, the management was totally Swiss. So I think it was quite different from you guys now. I know because my son is attending his bachelor in Glion as well.
Okay.
So tradition goes on.
Cool.
But I mean, I noticed a few differences between my time and his time. So I know that now it's more dynamic and more international, because my time it was classes were in French and not in English. So of course it was limited to a certain kind of market, because Russian or Arabs or Chinese didn't find it so easily to study in French rather than English. So I know that now you have more nationalities, so it's even more international than it used to be. So I think it's a great achievement.
I should mention that too. That's another reason that I chose to teach here, and a couple of them that are very closely related. First of all, the international student body is absolutely an amazing experience. Not that I'm a vampire, but I get energy from that. It's amazing, and interesting cultural things that we learn that I wouldn't necessarily be exposed to in the United States, whether it was in the business or teaching. It's just not that diverse, really. And so for me, that's super rewarding personally. It's really rewarding to, as students go back out into the world, watch careers grow all over the place. It's kind of fun. That's kind of a rewarding piece, to be honest with you, in terms of that international thing. The other thing that is a real draw for Switzerland is the Swiss style of education in general. The Swiss have always in their education an applied component. Right? Yeah. Well, that's true. The train is 60 seconds late.
And let's talk about
that's little different than Italians. So
it's amazing. That's absolutely true. But I'll tell you, it's something that you actually appreciate after you're here for a while. And pretty soon, I'm looking at my watch saying, "My friends are, what's the matter? 60 seconds late, you guys." But no, also the system of education, they believe in apprenticeships still. They don't push everyone into only theoretical learning. And so it gives people that learn differently the opportunity to also learn. It's going to sound funny. I'm a professor, but I don't really enjoy reading. I read about my sports teams. I read things so that I can share information and stay current, but I typically read very short current things. Textbooks, I'm not even really sure in the part of the industry that I'm in that a textbook's appropriate, because by the time it's printed, it's starting to become outdated already. So the beauty with our system is that even in what I teach, which is revenue strategy, some pretty involved things, I use simulations, and we always have a hands-on component because I learned best by making mistakes. And so by giving students the opportunity to touch and break things, I think what happens is you can reach the student that learns that way, not just the one that learns with theory, because some love theory, but not all of us understand really how to apply theory until we get a chance to check it out. And the Swiss system is that way in the lower levels of education, and it carries itself all the way through. It just has an applied component that I think is the best way to teach our business. I think only theory, it's kind of like saying the battle plan is great until you engage the enemy. Well, if you only learn theory, you have the opportunity to spend 4 years in school and then really figure out that you don't like the environment that all that theory is applied in. Whereas if you get out into it sometimes, it really helps you learn, and I think it prepares you for what the future is going to be like. And that's a very Swiss thing. All of our students perform internships. My master's program, I accept students that don't have hospitality experience, especially if they have digital marketing experience or they have some technology experience. But if they have no hospitality experience, we put them in the same program with the younger students so that they wait on some tables and they make some pastries and those kind of things. Because this is a meeting of hoteliers. I know that everyone that's listening will understand what I mean. You don't have credibility in a hotel until you smell like a hotel. And you can't smell like a hotel in one day. So it's important to have kind of that knowledge, and that hands-on component, I think, significantly increases someone's opportunity to be successful. So that's another part about the system that I like. I teach in a master's program. There's a lot of applied learning. That's an unusual type of a conversation, really. So yeah, it's very special.
Yes. So before start watching to the master and its program, maybe Antonio, we can share some comments.
Yes, absolutely. The first one I would like to share with the Professor Dahl is coming from Valentina Gagliasso that I agreed. She said that her best experience is to share her own job with 30 person coming from different nationalities, just to spread her own culture, to have more experience on that. Because when you face two people coming from another country, probably you will learn more than any other book you can read in your entire life. And then there is also a little joke from Maria Elena Gaetani. After living in Switzerland, you never be late. no matter where.
I will tell you, I'm less late than I used to be, but I'm the most late of everyone that I work with. I've gotten better, but it's not fixed. You can tell.
Okay. Fine, Mr. Dahl. Thank you very much. So,
Let's move,
Claudia, we have a look.
Can I just say, I love that statement about the diversity. That's another beautiful thing about our industry. If you work in the high-tech industry, it's extremely diverse, or most people would say. And it is many nationalities, lots of skin colors, but then everyone shops from the same stores. When you go to the mail room, the shoes are all coming from the same store. So the diversity it's diverse, but then it ends at a certain point. Our industry is amazing because we have a person with a finance degree who goes to the same Christmas party as a grandmother who doesn't have a high school education. And we all have one goal. And so the cultural exchange that happens in hotels is, I think, one of the most special parts about it. I've had opportunities to take revenue management to other industries several times career-wise. Many other industries have movie theaters have the same concepts or all kinds of things like that, but none of them have the environment that we have. That is really so many different people every single day finishing a job and coming the next day and doing the same thing again, which is really cool. So I love the comment about the diversity. It's one of my favorite parts about hotels, for sure.
It's really cool. Yes, you're right. Claudia.
Yeah, let's move to the next slide. We will talk about the master in digital transformation, because digital technology is revolutionizing hospitality, creating fantastic opportunities for tech-savvy professionals who have the skills and insights to lead digital transformation strategies. Your master in hospitality strategy and digital transformation, the first of its kind in the world, is designed to make people ready to seize these opportunities and shape the hospitality industry of tomorrow. Would you please let us know more about it, and also how do you manage to keep up education with the tech evolution, because the pace is very high?
Of course. Yeah, I think let me talk about the second part first. Our business is very traditional. It's very slow moving. The great example is neckties and luxury hotels. We've been talking for at least 10 years. It's not part of the definition of luxury to see a necktie. And yet you can go to desert hotels in the United States, you can go to the Middle East, and you can watch some poor person load luggage who's wearing a necktie in a 43-degree climate that's practically dying in the heat. And so we're very slow to accept change. And yet, if you think about everything that's digital, it happens every 18 months, it's mostly new. So the combination between those two is a point of friction. And it's a point of it's an opportunity for leadership. So how do you help this very slow moving operation? How do I help a general manager who is not a digital marketing expert, but a tremendous leader, absolutely understands how to deliver a great product? How can the person who's responsible for this fast moving part of it properly interface with the more traditional part of the business? So that's the basics behind the degree. Think about now in a hotel, if you take apart, you wouldn't really pursue an advanced degree or higher education degree to work in the kitchen, unless there's a culinary degree, which would be different, or in housekeeping. But as soon as you take away those two departments, if you stand outside the building and look inside, about half of the building is responsible for delivering the customer experience, and the other half of the building is responsible for attracting the customers, for communicating with the customer. So it's a specialization. But remember, 85% of our transactions were digital last year. So it's a specialization of about half of the hotel, really. But in terms of just what happens in the current world, right? We don't answer the phone and take very many reservations, except at very special types of hotels. So it's all changed. It's all changed very much. So how do you keep education caught up with it, was the second part of your question. And that is by connecting education with the industry. Like I said, a textbook will be stale just about the time it's hey, here's your book. This chapter's old. I mean, right now we're having a gigantic discussion about internet cookies. And they're getting ready to go away, but we don't know that. Well, if you were going to write a textbook today, you better make that not connected to the rest of the book because the story isn't finished. So, and it continues to be that way from one thing to the next, whether it's artificial intelligence and personalization, or it can be all kinds of different things. It happens much too quickly. So you connect with the industry. And so, for example, in my curriculum, I have a portfolio of hotels that I work with in the United States. Shout out to Driftwood Hotels, some of the best people in the world, because they're very transparent with us and they let us work with their hotels. So my students get involved first in using some of the performance reports and actually being able to work with real hotel data. They get STR reports for the hotels. In a couple of weeks, we start another module where they start participating on a weekly basis in the weekly sales strategy meeting. They start to receive OTA insights, data tools, subscriptions, and those types of things. So they're touching the stuff that the hoteliers are touching today, and they're listening to them on the revenue call because, of course, revenue calls happen like this now, so you don't have to be there. And so they're listening to all of the strategy and those kind of things and experiencing the environment. That keeps them very current, obviously. And we work on projects connected to those hotels. So many people that are listening today have probably heard of Max Starkov. Max Starkov is one of the thought leaders really in digital marketing in the industry. Max is the visiting professor for advanced digital marketing strategies, and he will use the same hotels that I'm starting to use with my students next week, and they'll evaluate their digital marketing plans and then make recommendations. So by keeping it all in the very current, in the very real is super important. By partnering with industry, I mean, it's for all of our partners in industry that provide us that stuff. They provide it to us very graciously, but they also get the opportunity to influence tomorrow's leaders in the hotel industry. So it's very, very good partnership, and so we can see them touch things and actually be in the current moment. The other thing we do, which is pretty cool in this degree specifically, is that we have capstone projects when the degrees finish. And so we actually bring projects to the students, and they're going to work for 16 weeks completing those projects like a business consulting project, full-time, and those are with companies. And some of those, I actually have 2 projects that they're working on this semester that very likely will result in companies, because there are companies, 2 companies are providing some technology. They want to find a hospitality solution. And so if the students can work through that type of solution, it's likely that that company would continue to move on. So have them work on real projects, real stuff that's very innovative. I think you'd also, if you talk to some of the current students in the master's program, they would tell you that that's one of the highlights too, that it's nice to be able to talk to me. I'm actually pretty current. I know what I'm doing, but to be able to hear that from so many different perspectives and be able to form their own picture, there's no way that could be done, I don't think, without bringing the industry experts right into the classroom with you. And thank goodness for MS Teams and StreamYard and things like that, because I can bring experts from the United States into my classroom for 45 minutes, and it takes 45 minutes on their calendar at the same time. So the efficiency is amazing, and without the inconvenience, they're all quite frankly, many of them are very, very, very willing to share. So I think that's the biggest thing, is really the keeping super close connection to the business, and getting away from old theory. Old theory is old.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, sorry, Maurizio, I would like to ask you, you mentioned earlier that you provide the students some projects, okay, real projects that they have to work on it. So it's like, it sounds like you guys are doing research for these companies. It's something like you work for them for a project, and then the results, maybe it can boost their activities. Is it that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Think about what students are really, really great at. So they're really great at research. Right? They're better than professionals at research. And so imagine if you're considering, possibly having a modification of a product. Who better to go to the users and understand and survey the users and get all those users' needs than students that are doing a project and can structure that somewhat academically, but still have the output for the company. So, and who better to do that than students, because people will tell them the truth. I might not want to help you. I might not want to help you start the next Expedia, but I'll talk to a student for an hour. So I think there's a benefit in that, right? That it has an academic sort of an innocence attached to it that probably would allow a company to learn a little bit more than they would if the company went out with their logo and a survey. So I think that's definitely one of the components that I think is really I think valuable for those companies in that sense, that they can have the students act like students. The benefit to the student is that it puts them in the environment, and in the case of these projects, it gives them some self-determination. Okay, here's what we think the basic steps are. Here's what we want the outcome to be. And you meet with me once a week and tell me about your progress to make sure you don't get too far behind. So you have a lot of self-determination, and you work in a group. So you learn all of that stuff, which
team building.
We all know what that means. Never mind. We can go to the next topic. But you work in a group, so you get all of those interpersonal things. Some people, you learn that you can complain to your professor about the person that's on your group for some project, but you don't go complain to your boss about the person next to you because they don't work quite as hard as you, because it gets on you too. You just do a little more work. So they learn a lot of those things in that process too, which is great. They also really, in a way, in the form of that project, start their employment history, because effectively they're engaged by a company. So if they were putting that time period on their LinkedIn, they shouldn't put that time period on their LinkedIn as they were a student. They should put that time period on their LinkedIn that they were doing a business consulting project for this XYZ company. So it's kind of has really the same impact as a really, really well-placed internship in terms of relevant experience and contributing to the student's ability to be a storyteller about the next job they want. Because I tell my students all the time, you keep your job with your competence, but you get your job with your storytelling ability. And we all know some people that have gotten their job with their storytelling ability and then didn't have the competence to back up the story. That's not an uncommon thing. But the reality is, having some things that make you able to explain what you would offer to your next employer are important. And those projects, they give them really good stuff for that, to be able to tell the story. So that's a really helpful piece. We're just starting them now. We have one that's in biometric technology, an application for biometric technology in hospitality. So facial recognition, yikes, facial recognition. And then we have another one, which is a revenue management company that's wanting to create a small enterprise product. So we have some pretty neat, very relevant projects that they work on that are working with existing companies and existing technology. So not ideas, but things that can happen, things that can be made to happen. So, pretty fun.
Awesome.
Really,
awesome.
Interesting. So just a question on leadership, Mr. Dahl. So I see, leadership is one of the most important things you teach on the master. So how important, how relevant is leadership on digital transformation, in your opinion?
Oh, it's everything. I think leadership is everything, because leadership, in my opinion, starts and ends with trust. And so if you are the revenue leader, sorry, I have a cable that's attacking my foot. If you are the revenue leader,
yes, don't worry.
If you're the revenue leader of a hotel, you have to remember that there are other people that are also responsible, and their success or failure is tied to your success or failure. So if they look 3 months into the future at a strategy that you have, and it feels like it's not going to bring the revenues that they need to then deliver the profit they're responsible for, you're in a constant state of friction about that, which the organization doesn't need. And so it's really critical, among other things, to be able to be very transparent and to communicate why you're making the decisions that you're making, so that everyone else can have confidence in them, and so that everyone else can just really align themselves with their roles instead of constantly looking at the revenue side. Because as every hotelier knows, if the revenue side gets goofed up, the rest of it's really, really difficult, right? It's so much harder. Lots of revenue, we can have parties for staff and things like that. No revenue. We're happy if we just give the owner enough money to pay the loan, right? So it's a the business is difficult in that way, and it's really driven by revenue. So the leadership piece there is key, because the people that I'm training, the ones that will be in the specific part of that specific part of the industry, they'll be the ones that are responsible for charting the revenue path. And so they have to be able to participate in the overall leadership of the company, so that the other players can have confidence. The other piece with leadership in that regard is that I will tell you, the best organizations I've worked for were very flat, and they weren't necessarily flat with titles, but they were very flat in that we listened to the people that were doing the job. And so, I learned that very early in my career, when someone came in to a meeting that I was sitting in, and I was a front desk supervisor, so I wasn't even the front office manager. Someone came in from corporate and started talking to us about proper check-in and proper check-out and the amount of time and some other things. And pretty soon we were all leaning back and forth, and the question we were all asking each other was, how long has it been since he checked anyone in? What does he know? I don't think he knows. And so I think that's a critical piece of leadership too, to have the confidence to allow your organization to make decisions, right? Not just to jam down the way you think it should be, because you almost never get it better than the people that are doing it 40 hours a week. But we have
unfortunately, this is the case. I mean, this is the normal way to do that.
Sure is. I will tell you, but it's interesting, and I mean this really to anything to open some conversation, but it's different culturally as you go around the globe. And so that's just a very different thing as you go from one place to another. And it has to do with the rest of culture in that area in terms of where you're managing. But yeah, some places are definitely more participative than others. Mm-hmm. And I really encourage my students sometimes to find those places, right? If you're from China, for example, which, let's face it, has a culture where the boss has tremendous authority. Even if his directions are terrible, we just do our best to follow them. We don't ask, because that's pointing out that he gave terrible directions. And so it's a cultural thing that I personally think makes it difficult to manage. And certainly if you don't understand. Does anyone have any questions? No, but then they don't understand, right?
They would be afraid.
It's because of a respect thing, and it's certainly no disparaging on the culture. It's actually a wonderful culture, but it's because it's very respectful. You have to understand that things would be differently there. In the United States, it's completely different. In the United States, our younger workers don't tolerate being silenced, and they'll just leave and go somewhere else. And we have enough turnover in our industry there. There's almost always another job for most of those people. So if a leader doesn't lead at least somewhat participatively, they end up being surrounded by people that don't want to participate, and that's bad. That means no innovation. They're just the robot people. And you can go into a hotel and see a hotel you can tell they're robot people, because they say things like, unfortunately, the policy. You just say policy.
I've been told that.
It's bad leadership, right? Because when we go to cities, what do we want? I want to meet people, and I don't want to see someone's robot that's had all of their personality rubbed off of them. I want them to do their job and to take care of me, but I want them to act like, let me rephrase that. I don't think they can fake it. So I want them to enjoy doing it, because that's part of my experience when I travel. If they all just look like, it ruins it for me. And so I think that there's a leadership component there when you mention it, just in general of our industry, understanding the people that really probably know what should be done. And sometimes we don't listen to them. So,
yeah. So it's really interesting that you say, so leadership is different from culture to culture. So when you have to be a leader, it's really difficult also if you have to manage people from different country, maybe you are in a different culture. So it's really interesting point of view.
It's interesting when you move around too, because what I'll say is all of those cultures have benefits. So one of the things I have a lot of students from Asia, and one of the things that they mention to me all the time is there's times that I stop them and I make them ask me a question. And at first they're super uncomfortable with it, but I know them a little bit and I can tell on their face they don't understand. So, and in my culture, it's kind of not acceptable for me to move forward. Like I kind of haven't done my job yet. So help me do my job. Yeah. And it takes them a little while to get comfortable with that I'll stop and say, Irina, I just saw your face. You don't understand. I'm almost sure. What is it that I can explain again? And you only have to think of spending 30 seconds in a classroom in Mandarin to develop immense empathy, right? And to really to understand it. But I think the cultural and what they would tell you is that's something we've learned from you a little bit about our culture, that we would never be like you in China. People would think you were crazy, but 2% more like you is actually quite a big difference. And that's kind of cool. It was really interesting to learn. And I've learned from them that I have to make sure in a very certain way that I make it super okay to ask the question. And I can't even say, I must have not explained it well. That doesn't even work, because then if they say, well, yeah, then they're acknowledging that I didn't. So it's even worse. So it takes some cultural stuff, but I'm sure you all know general managers that have managed in multiple parts of the world, and some of them become artistic in terms of their ability to read people, understand people, to be understanding without necessarily agreeing. I mean, that's a real skill, in my opinion. That's a leadership skill, to listen to a customer that's wrong and truly listen, because sometimes they're wrong. So to truly listen and to be able to diffuse that situation without just throwing money at them that you shouldn't. And I've watched people do that. And I will tell you, if you really understand it, it's something you can sit back and admire, because it's not built quickly. That's experience in our business, right? And it's probably from having hundreds of bad interactions with people that eventually you get really good at it.
But knocked out sometimes.
It's a great effort. Yes,
that's a bad word. I'm never going to say. And I learned one time, I'm never going to say policy again, because that basically says we've got a rule. To most people, it says, well, if I'm important enough, you'll break that rule. Instead of me telling you, sir, I'm sure you can understand that if your next door neighbor is making noise at 1:30 in the morning on a night you wanted to sleep, that wouldn't be okay, right? Instead of saying our policy is no sound after midnight. Well, and yet, that's an art. That's it's hard to teach.
Yes,
it's very hard to teach. Yeah.
And a lot of experience. So you have to do that a lot of time. So
over and over.
Over and over. Yes.
In the U.S., we say miles in the saddle, right? I'm on a horse. Yeah, very true.
Great picture.
Yes, it's really true. Yeah. So, Antonio, we can share something.
Yes, absolutely. I just make a little jump back where Alessandro Gomiero says that there is no any other industry as a hotel industry, because most probably is the only one that has such an international DNA. Then I have a few questions for Mr. Scott. The first one from Cristiano Parziale, and he would like to ask you, do you believe the new generation of students are ready to climb up the ladder from the bottom, or their master and their education make them ready to practice the leadership? Secondly,
that's an excellent question. I would say for the right leader, absolutely. I also think leadership has to evolve. I think if we think that, and I'm not talking about the master students, if we think that any 20 to 25-year-old is going to tolerate what most of us that are in the business that got into it 30 years ago tolerated, we're crazy. But I will tell you that I have kids that are that age. I've learned from them that I sacrificed too much of my life in the beginning, and probably would have been happier if I had not done that. And the problem for us is some industries don't do that anymore. So if we want great talent, we really have to, we can't make them pay their dues. We can ask them to do the entry-level positions, but then we should teach them. We should reward them. We should support them. We should give them opportunities. And if we do both of those things, then absolutely, I can tell you, I have 14 hungry students that would take an internship right now in the right situation and work their butts off and impress people a lot, because they have a vision for what the industry can be. But I would tell you, if they got into a situation with a bad leader that was going to be a dead end for 3 years, I've taught them how to recognize that and given them enough skills to get out of there and get someplace else, because not everything's going to be like that. So if the question is, are they ready to be the next level of entry-level employee in our business? I would tell you, absolutely. They're better prepared than any other has been, honestly. If we want them to sacrifice like we did 30 years ago, though, and we, and pay their dues. Unfortunately, they have options that don't make them do that. And so I think that might not be the best expectation. But I will tell you, give them an opportunity to advance, give them hope, give them some say in the business, give them the ability to have their voice be heard. And I'm actually, it's amazing. I mean, I find them to be extremely, extremely inspiring at times, because when you give them that voice, they'll spend all weekend thinking about a problem that you wouldn't have dedicated 5 minutes to, because it's just not the most important problem in the world. But when you look at the solution, it's really well thought out. So so I think, and by the way, then if you reward that, or even better, you kind of make that part of your culture, that they'll just like we did 30 years ago when we worked 70 hours a week, they will bring their brain to work. And quite frankly, they'll bring their work home in their brain in just a different way. So I think if you kind of think about the way people in general have changed at that age, you have to reflect that a little bit. But as long as you do that, absolutely. I think people see a lot of opportunity in the hospitality industry today. So they're willing to work hard to get the skills. And I beat them up all the time. And I tell them, I've already said it once, I say it a lot, you're not going to have success in a hotel until you smell like one. So you got to go work in one. And quite frankly, the way you're going to do best is work in one and just be quiet until someone asks you a question for a little while, and just learn everything that's going on around you. And I find a lot of them, yes, boss, right? They're willing to take that direction. It's not that that's offensive to them. But when we say you have to pay your dues, or when it feels like age is a criteria for a job, there's a rebellion with that, and probably pretty good reason in a way. So.
Yeah. So a really positive vision to the young people coming to the industry. I think it's really important now. Yeah, I agree. So Antonio.
Yeah, there was another question from Beatrice. Our Beatrice is one of the speakers of the series we have. Dear Mr. Dahl, do you think that this kind of connection should be a must-have for the school and tourism, and even for the high schools, not only at the university and master's program? What do you think about that?
I'm not sure about a degree concentrated in it, because I think it becomes difficult to pull all of those resources together, but definitely some components of the curriculum. I know hotel schools that revenue management is a piece of the sales class. I've for 15 years had a C-suite level job with that title. It needed more time dedicated to it at that school, in my opinion. So to answer your question, yes, definitely some of that specialization. I've talked to students at other schools who are getting ready to graduate that don't understand the whole online travel agencies or Darth Vader thing. Well, where have you been for 4 years? So I think that has to become more current. And I think those schools really, it's sort of being exposed a little bit that they're not super current in many cases because of content like this, that you're a fourth year hotel student and you're listening to this and none of it makes sense. Well, it should all make sense. So I would say, yes, that some components of the curriculum should include what's happening. If you can't fill a hotel, why run it? And honestly, if you can't convey clean a month in advance digitally to your customers, it doesn't really matter how clean it is. They're not coming. So those functions are super, super important. And if it's completely not acknowledged in the curriculum, I don't think it's doing a student a service. But at the same time, we teach machine learning and we teach web coding. Like this is, I would say, if someone is interested in this makes more sense. But every hotelier should have a basic knowledge of that stuff. And some school curriculum doesn't. Ours does, Glion does. I mean, the bigger schools do. Clearly, they've started to understand. But in many cases, they don't yet. And I think that's not doing the students a service.
Okay. Antonio, another question from Valentina.
Sorry, didn't get it. Okay, sorry, didn't get it. Valentina would like to ask you, would like to report you that sometimes most of the best ideas come from the employees and not from the management or the executive team, as they are the ones that are facing the guests day by day, and they can really improve the service.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Who, it's like that for everything. Who would run my Facebook page better, me or someone in London that ran 750 Facebook pages per day, right? So all of those things I think are much more, appropriate, I think, directly, more locally, more hands-on and stuff. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Those are your experts. Think of I read an article today, a very old friend of mine by the name of Ed Burke, who is vice president of housekeeping and engineering for Interstate Hotels. And he was talking about the process right after COVID of cleaning the room. And he said, I went with one of the housekeeping supervisors for one of the hotels near my office, and I cleaned a room. I know he and I worked in housekeeping together. Wow, super long time ago. But he, as an executive vice president, was cleaning rooms so that he could understand that process. And he was cleaning them with someone that cleans them all the time, because they needed to understand the additional work that would be created by the iron having. We didn't used to disinfect the iron, every time, but now we have to disinfect every single surface. And so he was kind of trying to understand what the additional labor was involved. So he went and cleaned some rooms so he could truly understand it. So there's no. I mean, a perfect. I had a general manager that I learned a lot from one time, and he ate in the restaurant twice a week. And if he hadn't eaten in the restaurant twice a week by Friday, he just grabbed a staff member and he ate in the restaurant. And we all kind of thought, man, that's pretty arrogant. Like, the guy is eating in, like, wow, that's weird. We have to eat in the cafeteria unless we get picked by him, blah, blah. Well, what we realized was he was eating in there on Monday or Tuesday, and he was eating in there on Friday. He was eating in there one of the 2 days that the restaurant manager had off every week, and he was eating on a busy day, and he was measuring the product. And so, it was part of his routine. He never told us why he was doing it. We all thought he was wanted to eat better food than the rest of us. But he had a really good routine for getting all the way down and understanding what the customer experience is, because there's no substitute for that, right? Whether it's talking to your line staff or becoming a customer for a moment, right? There's no other way to run our business properly.
Awesome. Shall we go on, or would you like to?
Antonio, I think there is another comment from Fausto.
There is something pretty famous. And it's an ideal conversation between a CFO and CEO. The first one, the CFO, says, what happens if we train employees and they leave? And the CEO always reply, what happens if we don't and they stay?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that. I think a third option is, what if the employees train themselves? I'll tell you what, we laugh, but that's not as crazy as you think, right? So, and what if our employees that really love it there continue to make it a better place for them to work by making sure that everyone else around them works at that same level? So I think you can get away. I mean, it's obviously a very important discussion, and certainly right now with hotel companies experiencing very low revenues but needing to invest in the future, it's a really, really loud conversation every single day. But I think if you don't invest in your people in some way, then I think you're in trouble. I do think it's impossible to invest in your people in many ways that are not monetary and still have great people. And sometimes, like we've been talking about already, it's just listening to them, right? Honoring them. Because we might not think it's the most honorable job in the world to do something, but that's what that person gets out of bed and does every day. So, boy, we're really not very nice people if we don't honor it. So, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we treat it like it's a meaningless task when it's not. So, yeah, very true.
Yeah, fine. So, Claudia, let's speak about the Innovation Hub.
Yeah,
Cool.
The Innovation Hub opened last September with the goal to develop pioneer solutions for all businesses that place the customer experience at the end of their strategy. That includes hospitality, hotels and restaurant, tourism and travel, luxury goods, service and e-commerce. Could you tell us a little bit what's the aim of this hub and who is involved in this project?
You bet. I mean, I would say I have to first of all give credit to the executive director of the school, Dr. Christine Demmen-Meyer, has always been very much involved in the entrepreneurial side of hospitality from when she was in the business prior to education, carried that in her educational career. And I would say at least a big portion of the vision could be credited to her, honestly. The executive director, Pablo Garcia, is the director of the hub. And he's an entrepreneurship professor at our school. He teaches entrepreneurship in the program that I'm responsible for, and really is the person that's putting it together. But what it represents is an opportunity for companies to get access to what I just mentioned to you before. Students are great at research. Students are great at innovation because students don't have any preconceived notions. Sometimes they say stuff that first sounds stupid, but then sounds smart after you think about it for a little while. So I've learned to always kind of just have at least a straight face, because if we talk about it for 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes crazy things become great things. And students are great at that because they're not stuck in the grind, they're outside of it. So that's what it's a great opportunity for those companies. And it's a great opportunity, as I mentioned. It's just a little bit easier to do some research. I mean, I'll ask yourselves, if you walked up to a hotel and there was a sign up front that says a research project using facial recognition is being conducted currently in the hotel. No personal information is being collected, only emotion and biometric information. Roches Global Hospitality, thank you very much for coordinating that. I think many of us would be tolerant of that. Whereas if it said XYZ companies doing some research on facial recognition, we'd probably all start walking into the building with our face covered and things, because it just seen differently when it comes from education. So that is what the companies get. What the students get is exactly what I mentioned. They get access to the cutting edge of technology. What decisions are being made now? What problems is the technology sector currently looking at the hospitality industry to try to solve? So it's one of those ways, as you mentioned, as you asked me earlier, it's how we stay current. So it's really cool. One of the projects that I mentioned is that we're working on with my master's is specifically from one of the technology partners in the hub. I coach a couple of student groups that have won a competition and are in the hub. So it's really it's part of La Roche's DNA. Glion, much more luxury focused. As we position ourselves a little bit differently, digital transformation goes hand in hand with innovation, and innovation goes hand in hand with startups and small companies and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a great place. It's it's certainly a nice. You go to the Alps, you get up in the altitude, the air is very clear. You clear your mind, and you come up with a really great idea. So and that's kind of what it is.
Maybe it's the oxygen.
Right. Very possibly. I will tell you, the multicultural environment contributes to it. Most of these groups are like mini United Nations, and in part because they get a more unique contribution from each other, and that's kind of an interesting byproduct of our environment. Is that different, very different in perspective, even within the student group, let alone students being different from other people. So yeah, very nice.
Cool, really cool. Let's move on because we are running with the time.
I told you I can always talk faster.
Maurizio, shall we go on with this, with the slide? Okay. Generally speaking, schools and universities have been mainly focused on training hotel managers so far, rather than creating leaders for the new digital era. So right now we see a lot of fantastic technology out there, but there is not a good understanding in the hospitality community. I guess it's time for hoteliers need to re-engineering themselves and embrace technology in order to get the real benefit from it. In your opinion, why is it important to have an education in this field? And also, which kind of new jobs you see in the future of the hospitality industry?
I will tell you, it's very specific. I can do a very specific answer. For a long time, if Expedia was looking for hotel graduates, they interviewed people at major hotel schools. And they might talk to a person who talked to Four Seasons about the management program, about the management training program in the morning. And now he's talking about possibly being a market manager for Expedia in the afternoon. There's not very many industries that those two kind of jobs are even the same similar profile. But our industry, because we've not really specialized that education so much, if they want someone with a hotel background, that's what they had to come talk to until recently. And what they learned was that first they tried to teach technologists hotel, and that was a disaster. So now they needed hotel people, and they teach them enough of the tech, because that's going to be someone that's going to be more able to come into our environment and speak to us. but neither was great, because some of them they would take the job and not even really understand what the job was. This type of specialization does two things. First of all, much more trained and much more prepared, but also given the opportunity to self-select. So if you've kind of looked at it and you've said, I think I'd like to be in the commercial discipline of the hotel, or I think I'd like to work at a revenue management company, then they know where to come find you now too. I mean, if you think about it, we don't go to liberal arts schools looking for engineers. We go to engineering schools looking for engineers, right? And so why would we be going to service delivery professional schools looking for digital communicators? It doesn't really make much sense. So that's really in a nutshell, that's why it really needs to happen, because it's time for us to become more specialized. Other industries have figured out our digital marketing training ground. We have tons of transactions. How many cars do you sell in a year versus how many rooms does the average hotel sell in a year? Why is that important? Because we make a lot of mistakes, but we do enough of it right that we learn faster, right? We have a pretty big margin in our electronic distribution thing. So we're able to spend some money because the choice is 15 to 25% with Expedia. So we spend some marketing dollars once in a while. So we learn that way. So other industries have figured out we're really, really good with social media, keeping loyalty and some of those kind of things. They probably figured it out better than we figured it out ourselves. And so by being more specialized, it gives you more of an education in that regard, if that's what you want to do. And it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, this is the part of the business I'm interested in. I don't necessarily want to be a room service manager, right? So I think those are the two big benefits of the specialization, for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yes. Claudia, so we move forward.
Yeah, digital is definitely shaking up the status quo. COVID-19 has accelerated this process, pushing the corporate world to change what it means to do business. There is a clear choice: innovate or fall behind. Besides the tech stack that hotels have built up in the last 20 years, for example, PMS, booking engine, channel manager, CRM, etc. New tools have been flourishing due to the pandemic, which are here to stay, such as chatbot, virtual concierge, virtual keys, check-in kiosk, etc., etc. However, I think there is much more to come. So, in your opinion, which are the ones who are the most fascinating and the one who will give more destructive kick to our sector?
A destructive kick. Well, I will tell you, the one that I'm most excited about, quite frankly, has everything to do with the shift in consumer behavior. And it's not on your little thing, but I'm going to tell you, I believe it's going to be a buzzword as we go forward, and that's mass personalization. Kind of a funny term, right? So, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of, we're talking about personalization so much. And the version of personalization that often gets talked about is invasive, and consumers don't like it. If we did a survey right now, how many of you absolutely love internet cookies? We don't need to do it. We know what the outcome is, right? People don't like that sort of stuff. And so, and if I asked you, when was the last time you looked at a product and then all of a sudden every banner and skyscraper ad for the next 5 days was that product haunting you, following you around the internet? Oh, come back and buy the shoes. Come back and buy the shoes.
Amazon.
When was the last time anyone went back and bought the shoes? It's not effective. It's not the way we want to be marketed to. It feels like stalking. Okay, and so it's no good. And Google's been signaling cookies are going to go away, but they've been saying it for a while, because what they've really been saying is, hey, advertisers, figure out a way to replace cookies. People don't like cookies. Okay, so they're going to replace the cookies, and it will be with fingerprinting or some new technology. But I think that what's going to change that is consumers are not going to respond to that type of advertising. But we can personalize without being invasive. So let me give you the example. You now can, on social media, you can use hashtags, and you can find very specific interest groups. I ride a Harley Davidson. So there's all kinds of different hashtags around that. And if you want to get in front of me as an advertiser, or more importantly, if you want to be a hotel that wants to talk to me about an experience, not about a bed and a toilet, then guess what? Talk to me about my Harley. How far are you away from where I live? No problem. You've got my attention. And then when
you engage them.
You've got my attention, right? And you don't need to do that by putting a cookie on my machine, because I'm already going to that place. I go to an online place and I sit with everyone else that has the same interest as me. And a smart advertiser could walk through that room with a big sign saying, I have a Harley package. I have a Harley package. Or in my opinion, an unscrupulous advertiser can sneak into my house at night and dig around. And when he finds a Harley t-shirt, hey, I have a Harley package. So one of them is personalization that I think is amazing. One of them is personalization that I think most consumers don't like. And so why that matters for us is because there's a giant shift in consumer behavior happening right now. Most of us, I'm sure, have at least one trip that we can't wait to go on. I can tell you my next 2 trips, but I don't know when they're going to be. I got my vaccination, my first one. I'm about to start thinking about dates. But for more than a year, I've been dreaming about 2 different trips with no dates. That's not how we used to do stuff. We used to go, when's Dad's vacation? Maybe we went to the online banking and so how much money do we have? And then we went to an online travel agency and we started booking our travel. But now we've already been in, I can't find my phone, but we've already been on our phone for 4 months, sharing with our friends and all these things. Well, guess what? That's the same benefit potentially for hotels that SARS and 2001 and everything, that one disruption created for the online travel agencies. Social media has been around for a while, but website marketing had been around for almost 10 years when that happened. And yet it was the decline in the business, the vacancies in hotels. Wow, here's new business, this internet thing. We didn't realize it was just our own customers, but somebody else mastered that environment before us. And it's a point of sale environment. So it's about pay-per-click advertising. It's about tons of content. But guess what this version is? It's about an experience. So I mentioned, if someone is sitting in London at the regional Expedia office trying to come up with 500 social media posts per day about fun experiences before they can go home to dinner, or I'm sitting in my own hotel saying, you know what, that really cool music festival that we have, people might be interested in that. Who's going to be able to create a better experience and connect with those dreaming travelers? So the first one, in my opinion, is mass personalization. It's social media. It's understanding how the web plays in that and making sure that you have your own brand terms protected, so that if someone does see your social media but doesn't click immediately, if they remember your hotel and they go looking on the internet, don't let them find Expedia then, right? That's a terrible, terrible thing. So it's understanding how that whole piece works, and that there's this shift in consumer behavior that's about to be in our favor, in my opinion, could be equally as large as the shift away from the business profitability-wise with the OTAs. So that's the first one that I think is absolutely massive. And I think it's all about us understanding what I said, mass personalization, right? Don't be creepy. Create a memory around your product and then figure out who would be interested in that. And they're there. You can find them. Hashtag family travel. Boom. Right. So it's really about understanding how to sell an experience, how to sell a memory, not a bed and a toilet. I mean, that sounds kind of funny, but that's a really good way to remember it. So I think that's a massive, massive development that's taken place.
Mm-hmm.
I also think the thing that you're going to see is you're going to see the democratization of technology. Cloud computing was on there, or cloud distribution or something like that. That's made technology much more affordable to people. You don't have to buy a server. You don't have to have an IT guy in case the server doesn't work. Like, a lot of things got better. Many hoteliers have not revisited their technology solutions since it got much cheaper, because they didn't need to, because things have been good. Life has been good. But now things are not so good. And remember what I said about the recovery. It's not that everyone, okay, oh, wait, no, he needs a reservation now. No. This guy that understood, so this lady that understood social media better, her hotel's practically full. And this guy's over there looking at her parking lot going, what am I doing wrong? I don't understand. What am I doing wrong? It's not going to be this real slow thing. So there's going to be this whole turnover of what technology is useful, what technology is a distraction. Some of the technology solutions that we get, 5 hours worth of work for 2 hours worth of benefit, those are going to get weeded out too, right? As people come up with new stuff. But I think that that's a huge thing, that every time we have these downturns and there's a need in the business, that need is filled by innovation, by really cool stuff. And so I think this one, in my opinion, has everything to do with us learning how to sell our experience. I mean, if you remember December of 2019, everything was experience economy, experience economy, experience
Yes.
economy. Right now, everything is sanitation economy, but that's going to end. That's going to end, right? And then what it's going to be is it's going to be exploration or something. I mean, some people call it revenge travel. I just think it's pent up travel demand, right? We've just been home so long. I was in the United States 5 times in 2019. I haven't been in the last 13 months. So it's just like I'm out of my routine, and that's where my family is. So I think we're all kind of like that. I think those are the big things. I think that the democratization of technology, parts of the industry, companies like Room Price Genie. I sit on the board of a company called Room Price Genie, revenue management technology, but 100% built for 50 rooms and smaller, simple operation. And their whole thought process is that person is busy. We can't make it any more difficult than it already is. So that has to be the limitation of the technology. Whereas most of the old revenue management systems, amazing returns for very large hotels, but pretty soon you almost have a data scientist running it to get the most out of it. A 50-room hotel doesn't have that luxury. So people are starting to build products for that niche in the business. So I think there's a democratization of technology that takes place too. So.
For sure. No. You know that the average, you know that in Italy, the average for rooms in a hotel, what number is it? What is the average room?
Probably 35 or so. It's
33.
Small, right?
Yeah.
33. Yeah. Oh, no. 33. And by the way, that part of the business, what experience economy? Yeah, I would agree. 1,000-room hotel in Times Square is an experience, but not the experience I want, right? Those types of things. Because think about what they can do. The hotel like that has the ability to offer its customers a home-cooked dinner with the little old lady around the corner that like still makes her own olive oil, or truffle hunting in Tuscany. I mean, you can't create those from a central location in London, but you can create those when you're in one spot. And you can sell that experience. People connect with the experience, and then of course, where are they going to sleep? Well, you're the one that told them about it. You're the friend that told them about it in the first place. Of course, they're going to stay with you, right? So I think that's the way we have to change our mentality a little bit. And the small hotel can absolutely have, I think, unprecedented tools that it's kind of been slanted towards the bigger hotels and better technology for a while. The technology is pretty much everybody, like most of us are carrying around the technology for most of the marketing that I'm talking about. It's not that complex. It's about understanding it and seizing your advantage of being able to tell a more specific, more targeted, micro market segment, mass personalized kind of story. Right? Don't sell rooms and beds anymore. Make people happy.
That's a really interesting, really exciting perspective. So make people happy. Yeah.
Right. That's boy.
After all this sadness.
Yes.
That was
after the COVID. Yes.
Make people happy. But it's very true, right? I mean, we've talked about it. It kind of does come back to that. Keep your staff happy. And in my opinion, right, give people an experience, right? And don't have the minimal role of shelter. Think about Maslow, right? Connect with them in the stuff that matters with them. Don't connect with them on shelter. Anybody can make food, but food has so much other stuff attached to it. Make food like about the experience of food, right? Then it's something entirely different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Antonio, we can share one more comment.
Yes, I have one from Cristina Gambino. There is our Cristina. And she says that the experience is the core of our business. It creates memories and lets people find the child inside them, creating a memory of their childhood. And I would like to add by myself that really often any hotel management is concentrating to build up a brand, but usually they forget the brand is a world built of people.
Absolutely. I will tell you what, every hotelier should try something real fun. They should post a picture of their restaurant, and they should post a picture of their restaurant with 3 of their staff members in it and see which one gets more likes.
Yeah.
You're done.
Behind
That's
the
all the
scenes.
research you need to know. People want to connect with people. When I go to a hotel, I don't care who the general manager is, but when I walk by the bar, if it's like the guy that was there last time and he was a nice guy to talk to, I will almost always stop and have a beer. I become his repeat customer because he's still there. Who cares who the GM is? I never see them anyway. It doesn't make any difference to me. And any GM that thinks that
That's true. That's true.
They're missing the point. You're missing the point. I would tell you, if I see you, there's probably something going wrong. So I don't want to see the GM.
Yeah, you don't want to see the GM. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Especially if he has the big key ring. That means get out of the building. So, but I mean, it's very true, right? You that's what we connect to. We connect with the people. So, if anyone has a website with beautiful pictures of your restaurant, but there's nobody in them, what I would say is take a chance. I know clothing becomes outdated and you have to take more pictures, but people will respond to your website much better. We all recognize architectural pictures. We don't like them. In some cases, the clothing, but in some cases, the clothing lets us know how old the pictures are, right? Wow, these are pretty new pictures based on those clothes. This place must be still new. So
that's that's why in fashion they have influencers.
Mm-hmm.
Because to show.
We didn't talk about that at all, really, very much with it. But that's another thing that's coming along. And what I would say is create your own influencers. Don't pay somebody who says they have a giant audience. Go find the people that love your product and tell them to tell people about it. It's much better. It's much more genuine.
Yes.
Much more genuine. And reward them for telling people about it. Do you know what I mean? Retweet their stuff. I mean, just all kinds of things. I'm going to repost that. But yeah, that to me is much more. Only a family member would have more credibility than a regular customer. But Khloe Kardashian doesn't influence where I have dinner.
So now we can share the result of our pool and see what our audience is thinking about happiness. So the first question was, has your company already invested in education for digital transformation? And we have our audience 50, say 50. Yes, 50-50. Our audience say yes and no. So these are results. And then the second question: what gap would you like to fill to innovate your business? So big data analysis was the first result. So Mr. Dahl, what do you think about the result of the pool, about these different technologies?
I have a great comment for the first one, and that is to say, if your employer is not investing in it, then invest in it yourself. And it might simply be as simple as your time. There's a great thing called the Google Digital Marketing Certification. It's about 10 or 12 different modules. It takes a couple weeks unless you just really work on it hard, but it's really, really, really well done. You get a nice little thing to put on your LinkedIn that's from Google. It kind of gives you a little bit of credibility and everything. But I would say don't rely on your employer to improve you. If your employer does, good for you, right? That's good. You're lucky. But if they don't, just take control of it yourself would be my question about that one. So everybody have a statement about that one. My second statement about this one with big data is very similar as well. And I think what you'll see, if you're already in analyzing that data, if you're doing it yourself, there's tools that are coming to make that better. Hopefully you're not in Excel. Hopefully you're at least in Tableau. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google both of them. One is better than the other. And it's really just, Excel is amazing. It's fantastic. But to get to a visualization with a lot of data, start to play with that stuff. So if you're doing it yourself, tools are coming that are better. Learn how to do it. It's only going to become easier. The vendors that are doing it are getting better at it. So I think that's really important as well. And I think that the last thing I would say about big data is don't ruin your world. So only take on the amount of new information that your current organization has the ability to act on. Tons and tons and tons of data. If you can't do anything with it, it's a source of frustration more than anything else. So I would say if you have a small operation, start real small, right? Look at what you're not doing. What 1 or 2 things can you start to incorporate in your decision-making process that you didn't have before? Don't try to jump into the 21st century without going through the 20th century first and some of that kind of stuff. So that's to be careful. don't ruin it, right? Don't put so much horsepower in the car that you can't drive it anymore. So.
Yeah. Okay, the last one was about could you think out of the box be an added value for your business model? So I think more than the 80% agree with this statement. So what's about this statement, Claudia?
Well, of course, thinking out of the box, I think it's a great value, because that's why we should look at other sectors and see what's going on there, and see how they reacted to the crisis or for other kind of challenges, in order to not being focused always on our processes and habits, but try to solve the problems, bringing a new thinking. And this one you can have it either if you are young, or if you come from another sector that is more critical and is more rational about the problem, but is not so emotionally involved in your problem, and so can solve better the situation. What do you think, Professor Scott?
First of all, I completely agree with you. I think that things are going to change. The disruptions causing innovation, and if you're not involved in innovation, you're going to just be behind what the curve is. The other thing that outside the box made me think of, and it's outside the box in two ways, is there's been another change in the world, and that is people's work habits. MS Teams, COVID, all those things taught us that we don't necessarily all have to go to offices like we used to. That's not fully changed, because a lot of offices, a hotel lease, unfortunately for us, is only a couple of days. So as soon as COVID hit, everyone checked out. Excuse me. Everyone checked out, and we had our depression. We're here. But the commercial office lease is typically 10 years. So based on when you were in your cycle, you might be paying a lot of rent for a very empty building right now. But I promise you, you will not renew that lease. So the disruption that's going to come over time, which is people being less connected to a location for their jobs, is going to be something that we need to think about, because the mixed use trip is about to start to happen. And what I mean by that is it's not a business trip anymore that I work in a little bit of leisure. I don't have a work from home job anymore. We're going to change that. We're going to call that a portable job, and I can take my job on vacation. And I tell you what, think about how that would work. A European person could go to the United States on vacation with their family. They could get up pretty early in the morning. They could attend to their business while their kids are still asleep. They could spend the entire day at Disney World, and they could do the whole thing over tomorrow. And they're not even really out of work, right? So that's something to consider. That's really going to be a big change. And so the whole idea of job portability, business centers are going to become important again. Everybody was carrying enough technology. Well, not really enough if I'm going to treat that in my office for 4 days. I need a good printer. I might need a scanner. I might need some things. So that's going to become important. Wi-Fi is going to become, everyone in the building is going to need to be able to stream at the same time. If you think you have a Wi-Fi problem, put everybody on to stream at once in your building. But they've all got meetings. They're all attending meetings. So you have to be able to accommodate it. But that piece of travel is coming. And interesting brands like WeWork, not WeWork, I beg your pardon. That's an interesting brand. Interesting brands like Zoku, which is kind of a mixed use, kind of has it's like a little bit of an office kind of a room, and they've got a really cool common space, and they all have a really cool roof. It's like a co-working space and stuff. Those kind of brands I think are going to flourish. And I think an individual hotelier, if they think about it, could really market themselves as, hey, listen, this is a great place for you to come. If your job's portable, why not come here for a week? Like, you can step right onto the beach in between meetings. Like, that's pretty cool. So I think that's a big thing that I think we'll see too. And that's outside the box, meaning outside of the big office buildings, and outside of that, that's going to become something that it's going to, in my opinion, more than replace the business travel that's going to go away from those big office buildings no longer being centers of places that we need to go, because we're still going to need to create the water cooler once in a while. So when all those people are working all over the place, they're still going to need to come to some place once in a while. So those types of meetings combined with this hybrid vacation / take my job on the road for 2 weeks, I think are big innovations. The U.S. RV industry is already having a gigantic positive impact from that, because people get in an RV and they drive around and they just pull over and do the meeting and they keep going. And so it's kind of already demonstrating that very early on, and hotels are simply waiting for more stuff to open up, and it's going to follow for us too. So that's definitely big.
So, Professor Dahl, thank you very much. We are at the end of our live, so I think we can keep speaking about digital innovation for hours and hours again. So, but we are at the end, Claudia.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic episode. I really thank Professor Dahl. I could spend hours listening to him. And I really would like to go and join him at the La Roche campus. But unfortunately, we are already paying for our son. So
I understand.
We don't have any more money left.
I understand. Well, so I will tell you, thank you. This has been fun. I obviously, I think, as I mentioned, I enjoy the subject. So it's pretty easy for me to talk about, but really fun when it's with people that are like-minded, and really great questions that people had and some of the comments they shared. So it's been really fun, been a fun time for me too. So thanks for having me.
I hope we can share another live together in the future, maybe speaking on a specific topic about digital transformation.
Absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
It would be great.
That'd be great, yes. Antonio, something to share at the end of the episode?
No, but I would like to leave the people with my own question, just to improve their way of thinking out of the box. And I would like to ask you and the people watching us, if I have an empty bag, what can I add to make it lighter?
Empty bag?
An empty bag.
That's tricky. Okay, we'll leave with this question.
I will reply. I will give you the right reply on our Telegram group.
Okay. So let's join us on our Telegram group, and Antonio will show you the answer of this trick.
Maybe.
Okay. Maybe. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone, to join our live. And see you next week with the next episode of My Digital Hotel.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.